You know Argentina for tango steaks and glaciers, but the country's story goes deeper. From titanic dinosaurs in Patagonia to legal milestones and secret landscapes, today we uncover 20 surprising evidence-backed facts that change the postcard. No myths, just the evidence. You think of Argentina, and you see steak on a grill and gauchos riding across endless plains. But the evidence shows a far more complex reality. While the Pampas are the legendary heart of Argentina's agriculture and cattle ranching, they don't define the entire economy. A vast network of urban services, a robust industrial sector, and a diverse range of export commodities, from soybeans to lithium, paint a picture of a nation far more intricate than its most famous postcard image. You might see Buenos Aires and think you've been transported to Europe. The city, with its Parisian boulevards nestled by the Rio de la Plata, earned its nickname for a reason. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a massive wave of European immigration and wealth transformed the capital. Architects, influenced by Haussmann's Paris, designed grand avenues like the Avenida de Mayo, opulent theaters, and elegant residential districts like Recoleta. The city's famous café culture, where intellectuals and artists have debated politics and art for over a century, further cemented its reputation as the Paris of South America, a European metropolis in the heart of the Southern Cone. You may have heard of Niagara Falls, but you might not realize its South American counterpart dwarfs it. Iguazu Falls is not just wider than Niagara, it's profoundly wilder. Stretching an astonishing 1.7 miles along the border with Brazil, Iguazu is a system of hundreds of individual waterfalls. The sheer volume of water cascading into the chasm known as the Devil's Throat creates a permanent cloud of mist and a thunderous roar that reverberates through the surrounding subtropical rainforest. It's a raw, elemental display of nature's power on a scale that few other places on Earth can match. You might assume that social progressivism in Latin America is a recent phenomenon, but Argentina achieved a legal milestone that surprised many observers long ago. In July 2010, it became the first country in Latin America, and only the 10th in the world at the time, to legalize same-sex marriage nationwide. This landmark legislation granted same-sex couples all the same rights and responsibilities as heterosexual couples, including the right to adopt children. The law was the culmination of years of activism and set a powerful precedent for the entire region, challenging long-held cultural and religious norms. You can't travel much further south on the globe and still be in a city. Ushuaia is closer to Antarctica than it is to Argentina's own northern border. Widely regarded as the world's southernmost city, it sits on the shores of the Beagle Channel, cradled by the final stretch of the Andes Mountains. Originally a penal colony, Ushuaia has transformed into a bustling tourist hub and a critical logistical gateway. From its port, research vessels and expedition cruise ships depart for the Antarctic Peninsula, making it a vital link to the White Continent and a last outpost of civilization before the ice. You may have seen images of glaciers and assumed they are all in rapid retreat. But Perito Moreno was long considered an exception. This massive glacier in Patagonia was famous for its state of equilibrium, where accumulation in its upper reaches balanced the ice lost at its terminus. However, a glacier once called stable is now showing signs of change. In recent years, scientists have observed an acceleration in its dynamics, with more frequent and dramatic calving events where skyscraper-sized icebergs crash into Lago Argentino. These changes suggest that even this once stable giant is responding to the broader shifts in our global climate. You probably know that dinosaurs roamed the Earth, but you might not realize Argentina was home to some of the biggest land animals to have ever lived. In the arid landscapes of Patagonia, paleontologists unearthed the fossilized remains of Argentinosaurus huinculensis. Based on the colossal vertebrae and femur discovered, scientists estimate this long-necked sauropod could have reached lengths of over 100 feet and weighed up to 100 tons. The discovery cemented Patagonia's status as a world-class fossil site, a window into a prehistoric era when titans walked the land. You've likely seen the dramatic poses of the tango, but its origins are far from the polished ballroom floor. Tango was born in the margins of society, in the working-class port neighborhoods of Buenos Aires and Montevideo in the late 19th century. It emerged from a cultural melting pot of European immigrants, descendants of enslaved Africans, and the local Criollo population. Initially considered scandalous and confined to brothels and tenements, its passionate, melancholic spirit eventually captivated the Parisian elite and, from there, conquered the world. Tango became more than a dance. It became a global cultural export, a symbol of Argentine identity and a form of political and social expression. You look at the windswept plains of Patagonia today and see a vast, semi-arid steppe, but the evidence from the deep past shows that Patagonia used to be much greener. Geological studies and analysis of ancient pollen preserved in sediment cores reveal that millions of years ago, large parts of the region were covered in lush forests. These ancient ecosystems, thriving in a warmer and wetter climate, were home to flora and fauna vastly different from today's. This dramatic transformation from forest to steppe is a powerful reminder of how landscapes evolve over geological time, shaped by shifting continents and changing climates. You associate Argentina with beef, but you should also think of wine. Beyond the famous asado, Argentina is a global wine powerhouse. Nestled in the foothills of the Andes, the Mendoza region is the heart of the country's wine production, a high-altitude desert transformed by irrigation into a sprawling oasis of vineyards. While Malbec is its flagship grape, earning international acclaim for its rich, velvety character, the country also produces exceptional Cabernet Sauvignon, Torrontés, and Chardonnay. As one of the world's top wine producers and exporters, Argentina has firmly established its place on the global viticultural map. You know that Spanish colonization shaped the nation, but that is only one part of Argentina's complex story. Before the Spanish arrived, diverse indigenous nations inhabited the land, from the Diaguita in the northwest to the Mapuche in Patagonia. The brutal history of the transatlantic slave trade also brought Africans, whose contributions to Argentine culture, especially in music and language, are now being increasingly recognized. And from the 19th century onward, waves of European immigrants, primarily from Italy and Spain, profoundly reshaped the country's demographics and identity. Multiple peoples and their histories combined in a complex, often fraught, process to form modern Argentina. You might see it as just a type of tea, but yerba mate is far more. It's a communal drink that's also a deeply ingrained social code. The ritual of preparing and sharing mate from a single gourd, mate, and bombilla, straw, is a cornerstone of daily life across Argentina. There are unwritten rules. One person, the cebadores, prepares and serves, always passing it in a circle. Refusing a mate or saying gracias before you're finished is a social signal. This shared practice transcends social class and is a powerful symbol of friendship, family, and hospitality. You think of deserts as seas of sand, but in Argentina's northwest, you'll find an otherworldly landscape of salt. The Salinas Grande, a vast salt flat stretching across the high-altitude Puna region, creates a dazzling plain of hexagonal, cracked white earth that seems to stretch to infinity. Formed from the evaporation of an ancient lake, this dramatic landscape is not only a major tourist attraction, where the stark white ground creates stunning optical illusions, but also a site for mineral extraction, a source of sodium and potassium for industrial use. You may have heard of Argentina's economic potential, but its history is defined by dramatic cycles of growth and collapse. Wealth and crisis alternate in the national story. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, it was one of the richest countries in the world, fueled by agricultural exports. Yet the 20th century was marked by political instability and recurrent economic crises, including devastating periods of hyperinflation, sovereign debt defaults, and sharp devaluations. This history of boom and bust has profoundly shaped Argentine politics, society, and the psyche of its people. You picture Patagonia as a vast empty land, but its steppe is home to a remarkable array of endemic wildlife. This is a landscape where unique fauna has adapted to the harsh wind-swept conditions. Herds of guanacos, wild relatives of the llama, roam the plains, hunted by the elusive puma. The flightless ñandú, or rhea, strides across the grasslands, while high in the Andes, the majestic Andean condor, one of the world's largest flying birds, soars on thermal updrafts. These species are integral parts of an ecosystem found nowhere else on Earth. You know about Iguazu Falls. But Argentina's UNESCO World Heritage Sites include many surprises. Beyond the obvious natural wonders, the country's list reveals a diverse cultural and geological history. It includes the Igualasto and Talampaya natural parks, known as the Valley of the Moon, which contain one of the world's most complete continental fossil records from the Triassic period. The Jesuit block and estancias of Córdoba tell the story of a unique religious, social, and economic experiment from the 17th and 18th centuries, showcasing a fusion of European and indigenous cultures. You might assume that such a vast country was always disconnected, but in its golden age, a denser iron web than you'd expect once linked the nation. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, British and French investment fueled the construction of one of the most extensive railroad networks in the world. These lines radiated from Buenos Aires, transporting grain and cattle from the interior to the port and shaping settlement patterns across the pampas. Though much of the network fell into decline in the latter half of the 20th century, the abandoned tracks and grand, decaying stations remain as monuments to a bygone era of prosperity and connection. You walk through Buenos Aires and see its European elegance, but the city also has a Gothic past, where its cemeteries tell urban stories. La Recoleta Cemetery is not just a burial ground, it's a city in miniature, an open-air museum of Argentine history. Ornate, soaring mausoleums, built in a wild array of architectural styles, house the remains of presidents, military leaders, scientists, and wealthy elites. Walking its silent, statue-lined avenues is like reading a history book written in stone, revealing the social hierarchies, political rivalries, and grand ambitions of the nation's past. You might remember the Falklands-Malvinas War as a brief conflict from decades ago. But for Argentina, it was a short war with lasting consequences. The 1982 conflict with the United Kingdom over the sovereignty of the islands left deep and painful imprints on the national consciousness. The defeat precipitated the fall of the military dictatorship and a return to democracy, but it also left a legacy of trauma for veterans and their families. The claim to the Malvinas remains a potent and sensitive issue in Argentine politics and a core part of its national identity. You know about Argentina's cultural exports, but its scientists also have a significant global reach. From paleontology to physics, Argentine researchers have made discoveries with global impact. The nation's paleontologists have revolutionized our understanding of the age of dinosaurs. Its physicists contribute to major international collaborations like the Large Hadron Collider, and its extensive Antarctic program, with several permanent bases, places Argentina at the forefront of climate science and polar research, continuing a long tradition of scientific inquiry and innovation. Argentina is stranger and richer than its stereotypes. All sources are pinned and in the end card. If you learned something, like subscribe, and tell us which fact surprised you most. We'll dive deeper into the top picks next time.